Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Brown County Public Library in Green Bay, interviewing candidates for the 2014 elections. We're interviewing Mr. Joel Kitchens. He's from Sturgeon Bay. He's a Republican running in Assembly District 1. Joel, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
And I have just an announcement. Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Well, thanks for coming in. Give us the short version of your bio and why you're running.
Okay, short version of my bio. I'm a veterinarian. I graduated from Ohio State in 1983, and after a year of working in a practice in Mayville, Wisconsin, my wife, who is also, she's a small animal veterinarian, we moved to Sturgeon Bay to start our own practice. So I've been there for 30 years. Our practices have sort of split apart, her doing the small and mine doing the large as our practices have grown and we've added more veterinarians. We have 3 children. The youngest of which started college last year, so we are empty nesters. I've been on the Sturgeon Bay School Board for the last 15 years, the last 13 actually, as president of the board, and I've been active in the community in my church and a lot of other activities.
Well, the last 3 years must have been pretty interesting in the wake of Act 10.
Yes, it was.
Was Act 10 good public policy? Because you saw it up close as a school board president.
Yeah, I saw it very much up close, and it strained our relations, with our teachers and that type of thing. But I think it was good policy. I think I certainly understand how difficult it was for the people affected by that. There was a lot of fear and unrest, and our teachers took a pretty big financial hit. It boiled down to about 15% really when you added in what they ended up paying extra in health insurance and retirement and that type of thing. But I think it was good policy. I think it needed to be done. There's a lot of good that has come out of it. And I think when I look at it now, and I think that most of the teachers, if they were being really honest, would say that our schools run better now, that it's a more cooperative atmosphere, it's not as confrontational. There were just some things that went on prior to that were outrageous. By law, if we buy any piece of equipment that costs $10,000, we have to bid that out. Yet we paid $2 million a year in insurance and we could not bid that out. And so that was, there have been tremendous savings for the taxpayers.
Did it cut any classroom services, do you believe?
No, in our district it did not.
It did not.
No.
Okay. Well, a big issue in Madison is the issue of school vouchers and choice.
Yeah.
Boy, how do you feel about those as a president of the school board?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd say that parents certainly have a right to take their kids to wherever they want. I mean, whether it's private school, public school, or if they want to homeschool, they have that right. And I think the more active and involved that parents are, the greater chance of success that those children have. So I'm certainly in favor of them having those opportunities. So as far as school choice and going to other public schools, I support that. Vouchers, they were originally intended, honestly, for the inner cities where the schools were failing. All of our school districts within the 1st Assembly District are not failing. We have excellent schools. So I don't think it's really necessary in our area.
Okay. Well, if you're a member of the Assembly, you'll be voting on the 2015-2017 budget. Do you think the the 1,000 student cap on vouchers statewide should be lifted, Joel?
Boy, I want to look at that really closely. I have mixed feelings about that. I want to analyze, is it really accomplishing what we want? Is it really letting kids go to schools that they otherwise would not have been able to go to? And if that's the case, then that's okay. But I have questions about that, and I have no idea what Governor Walker intends to propose. But again, the original intention was for those kids in failing districts, and I think that's what we really need to focus on.
Well, as a school board president, you deal with a lot of tough issues. I'm going to ask you about one more. Common Core standards. How do you feel about those?
You're hitting all the tough ones right away.
Yes, trying to get them out of the way.
So it's going to be downhill from here. Well, I think certainly it's an admirable goal for us to have, for the United States to be more globally competitive and to have very high standards. So I think Common Core came out of the Governors Association, which was Republican controlled. So I think those the intentions are very good. but I don't think that we can take control away from local school boards, and I think we have to be very careful to maintain that. I think a lot of the horror stories you hear about Common Core come from states like Florida and Texas and California, where the state actually gives them the curriculum and tells them what books they have to use. We don't do that in Wisconsin. So, I think Common Core should be a starting point, and as it goes along, I hate to even use the word tweak because that sounds minor, we can change it to suit our state. But I think what we really need to focus on is allowing school districts to maintain their control.
I've talked to some other candidates who say Wisconsin should withdraw from Common Core. You're not saying that, are you, sir?
I'm not saying that. I think we've invested millions and millions of dollars into it, and I know that's a popular thing to say, just bail out of it. I don't think that's necessary, but I think that we should feel free to change it to suit our needs.
Okay. Let me ask you about a health care issue. As you know, the federal government told all states, if you expand your MA benefits, we'll pay for it 100%.
Yeah.
And Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and Assembly said, thank you, feds, no thanks. Was that a good decision?
Well, I mean, first off, it's sort of a done deal, and I don't think I'll have anything to do with it. But, but I understand why they did that. People can sit back and say, oh, it's free money, why don't we take that? But the feds have a history of starting out and funding things and getting you involved in a program and then increasing the requirements, cutting the funding and that type of thing. So, I certainly understand why they did it. I think time will tell whether it was a good decision. I think right now it looks like it could have been, but we'll see.
Okay. You know how Door County needs good highways and transportation system for all those Illinois tourists to come up and drop money in your communities, but there is a projected $650 million shortfall,
right? And
that's 2 years away.
Yeah.
But do we do that by delaying highway projects or raising taxes, or how do we fill it?
It's a tough choice, and part of that comes from, again, going back to the feds not having lived up to their obligations to what they should have been, contributing to our highways. So that's another example of why I say that you have to be very careful what how involved you get with them. The problem, a big part of the problem has come from just the increased fuel economy of our cars, that they're not using as much gasoline, and therefore we're not bringing in the revenue that way. We do need to find a different source of revenue, obviously, because we want cars to have good mileage. We want less gas to be used. It's good for the environment, good for our trade deficit. I don't have the magic answer as to where that money's going to come from. We will have to delay some projects, I'm sure, until we get that under control.
Can you see yourself voting to either raise the gas tax or what you and I pay for license plates?
Boy, you hate to do that, but it may be necessary down the line.
Okay.
It has to come from somewhere.
It's so timely. I'm asking every candidate this. Reaction to Judge Crabb's ruling on same-sex marriage?
I think that's an issue that's going to be decided in the courts, and I guess I'm dodging it a little bit, but I think ultimately it will end up in the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, and I just don't think that I don't see myself ever having a say in that. I think that's a court decision, and you have to let it work its way through.
Okay. Two candidates for Attorney General say first offense drunken driving should be a crime. Your position?
And that's another issue I think I'm going to need to study a lot more once I get into the Assembly. I just want to see if does that really deter drunk driving. I think the laws have gotten a lot tougher in the last few years on repeat offenders, and everybody applauds that. I want to see the data on the first offenses. Is it really going to be a deterrent, or is it just going to make criminals out of more people? So.
Big issue in Madison and Washington, raising the minimum wage. Should it be raised?
Certainly not to the level that they are proposing.
You don't like the 10-10?
No, I don't like the 10-10.
Okay.
I think that people need to look at minimum wage jobs as a starting point. The Democrats love this issue because their data shows that everybody jumps on board and says you can't raise a family on minimum wage. Those jobs aren't intended to for raising a family. It's just a simple law of economics that if you raise that, especially at that high level, that you're going to have less jobs out there. It's supply and demand for labor. I think what we really need to focus on is getting our economy going better and creating more jobs and creating more opportunities for those people to move off of those minimum wage jobs. So that's where my focus is going to be. I don't think it's good policy to just artificially raise that minimum wage to that level.
Can I go back to schools for a minute?
Sure.
The Assembly Speaker convened a task force on rural schools. Do you consider your district a rural district? How many students do you have?
We have about 1,350.
1,350. So you're bigger than some of these.
Yeah.
But some of the smaller districts in Wisconsin.
I'm sure we face a lot of the same issues, but
understand.
Sure.
Do we need a new school funding formula for rural schools that are smaller than your districts or even yours? Is it time for a new funding formula?
I do think we need a new funding formula. It's not equitable, and I think when it began, it was sort of arrogant to assume that we could set up a formula that, in perpetuity, it would be fair to all the districts. We're all in different situations. There are districts that are increasing dramatically the number of students, and then there are others that are declining. And the formula rewards the ones that are growing and hurts the ones that are declining. I think it really needs to be looked at.
How does the formula treat your district?
It has hurt us considerably because we have been declining over the years.
Okay.
We're pretty much leveling off. We also benefit greatly from school choice from our neighboring districts, but we've had to pass referendums. It's that initial formula was not did not work for us.
Okay.
So,
is there any other issue that you consider key to your campaign I haven't asked you about, Joe?
Well, I think in our area, and particularly in Kewaunee County right now, there are issues with the water, clean water, and the environment, well, particularly groundwater, and it's mainly focusing in Kewaunee County on manure contamination of wells. So there's a very high rate of contamination. And I think, first off, that's not a Democratic or Republican issue. That we need clean water. Our people deserve clean water. And it's something that's a little beyond the scope of local governments to deal with. So I would love to get to Madison and bring help up here. One of the things they're working on is just increased testing of the wells and determining exactly where the contamination is coming from. It's easy to say, oh, it's the big farms and that type of thing, but I think we need to know exactly where it's coming from, and then whatever the source is, we need to stop it.
Well, is there any law that could be passed to help deal with that problem, or is it a matter of where's it coming from and how to fix it? Or
I think that's the real first step is where it's coming from and how do you fix it. Some people claim that the laws in effect right now with the DNR and all are not adequate. Until we have more testing and have more data, I don't know that we can say that, but we need to find that out.
Okay. If you choose, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponents in the primary?
Well, I have a lot of respect for all my opponents, so I certainly won't speak ill of them. But, I think what I bring to the office would be, first off, life experience. I started my own practice, my own business, and I think when you do that changes your outlook on the role of government and that type of thing. And I've managed the business for 30 years now. I've raised a family. I've again been the school board president for 13 years. So I think I have a very broad background. In my job, I deal with very wealthy people and people that are barely hanging on to their small farms. I deal with city people, rural people. So I feel like I really know our district. And the other thing I think I bring is just leadership. I've proven on the school board. I've been through very difficult times. You highlighted a few of those, and our district has done very, very well. So I think those are the things I bring to the job.
Very good. Joe Kitchens of Sturgeon Bay is a Republican running in the 1st Assembly District. The primary is August 12th. Joe, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks, and thank you for doing this. It's a great service you provide.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.